you need to appreciate that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all three can be traced back to something called astrotheology, and that's what I want to talk about. The beginnings of all world religions. Not all world spiritual movements. Not like for instance, Buddhism is not based on astrotheology. That's a spiritual discipline. But I'm talking about especially the people of the book. The three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, are referred to as the people of the book because all three religions require a book. Christians have the Bible, Jews have the Torah and all the other books, and of course Islam has the holy book of Islam, the Quran. So what I'm saying is this. Let me explain to you what I'm going to tell you. I heard one time one of my teachers said, when you're giving a lecture, you tell your audience what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you explain what it was you told them. And if they still don't get it, that's your problem.
Then
right?
They're never going to get it.
They're never going to get it.
Right.
But so what I'm going to try and explain to you is the actual beginnings of where Christianity got its concepts. Now, we're not talking about the organizational arrangement called Christianity, the church history. I'm not talking about church history. That's a whole different subject. But I'm talking about the philosophical concepts and ideas that have given birth to what we call Christianity. Because Christianity as a belief system is based on far, far more ancient systems of philosophy and ancient ideas, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a basis for what might be called today a new world religion. We hear a lot of, especially Christians, crying about this new world religion and the new age and all the devil worshiping and the Luciferian devil worshiper and all this stuff about the new age. Well, I'm telling you that there is, in fact, a new age religion, which is actually the oldest religion on the face of the earth. And I personally believe that this new age religion that the Christians are talking about is the story in the Bible. The Bible is a new age document. And I mean, we could go into that for hours. I could show you all the scriptures on that, showing that the Bible is a new age document. And that I am totally, this is Jordan Maxwell saying this, I am totally convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that Christianity as we have it today is a lost cause. It's a mockery. It's a joke. There's nothing very serious about Christianity anymore. It's a big joke. All you got to do is watch TBN, Trinity Broadcasting. If that doesn't give you a laugh, nothing's going to.
No, you're right.
It's a sick joke of these effeminate, goofy, mentally disordered goofballs jumping around, hollering, hooping and hollering, and spitting all over each other and falling on the stage and going into convulsions on the stage and throwing jackets at each other. And
theater.
Yeah, it's a theater. It's a God show.
Yep.
There's nothing spiritual about it. These people are making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. It's a show. And of course the scripture said that there would come a day when the entire world would be in the power of the wicked one, So the entire world is now completely lost. They have lost their spirituality. They've lost their connections with the divine. They've lost their money. They've lost their home. They've lost their government. And now they're just losing their minds.
It's embarrassing.
It's very, very embarrassing. Adults jumping around on stage, spitting and crying and jumping around. And they call that Christianity.
And they're so righteous about it.
And they're very righteous. holier than thou, and if you don't love the Lord Jesus, they're going to kill you.
Are they really righteous about it, or are they just acting righteous?
Well,
are the guys in charge? They know what's up.
Oh, of course they do. They're not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat and talked with the guys. I've talked with you. You know, Jan and Paul Crouch. So there's a real team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Bonnie and Clyde.
Yep.
Bonnie and Clyde, Jan and Paul Crouch. Well, I had a friend who passed away, so I can talk about it now. He passed away about 5 years ago now. It was a dear, dear friend, and he had a PhD, a master's, in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He was one of the few people who actually had a master's, did his doctoral work on the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Wow.
And so he was a master on it. So I would sit and talk with him. This guy's got a PhD in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And he lived down in Huntington Beach. No, there's a Huntington Beach. No, Balboa Island. And he had gotten his PhD from Claremont School of Theology. Well, Claremont happens to be one of the 2 universities in America who actually has a full photographic representation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Israel gave 2 complete photographic, top-of-the-line, clean, crisp photographic reproductions of the entire Dead Sea Scroll find. They gave it to America for safekeeping in case something were to happen in Israel with a world war. They did not want the Dead Sea Scrolls to be lost forever. So they made 2 complete sets and gave 2 of them. I don't know how many more they made, but they made 2 sets for America. And they're both in California. One is at the university in Claremont. Claremont School of Theology has a complete set of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, this doctor friend of mine got his PhD studying the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he did a doctoral thesis on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and his doctoral work was on astrology in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was his doctoral thesis, was astrology in the Dead Sea Scrolls. No one had ever written about that. They had a little bit, John Allegro had talked about it a little bit, and some of the guys on the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission in Israel talked about it, but generally speaking, there had never been a doctoral thesis done on the Dead Sea Scrolls and astrology. So he did it, and he did it so well, he got his PhD, got his doctorate because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy was extraordinarily bright and brilliant on the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Jewish religion, the ancient Hebrew, all of that. And I used to go down to visit him all the time. I wish I could remember the doctor who was in Long Beach, who was also in the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission. He was down there in Orange County, but he was also in the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission. I'll think of his name. But anyway, so my friend who got his PhD on the Dead Sea Scrolls, we would sit for hours and listen to him. And he would explain the Hebrew religion, where it came from, who the Jews were, who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, and what was really in it that nobody knows. But then he told me, he says, and so after I got my doctorate, I started my own church. I incorporated my own church. And it was called the Church of the Americas, I think. He was asked to travel all over the world to give lectures on the Dead Sea Scrolls, etc. And he said, but after looking at Judaism and studying it and getting a PhD in it, I came to the conclusion that the whole entire story of Judaic Christianity is full of bull.
That's what got him getting a PhD there.
That's what you get from doing a PhD and getting a doctorate in theology, because you got to really do your stuff. You got to know what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
And in order to get a PhD in it, well, because this guy was so good, he said, after looking at Judaism and Christianity, and a little bit of Islam. He said, but looking at Judaism and Christianity and getting a PhD in Dead Sea Scrolls, I am totally convinced the whole thing is a crock of bull.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yep.
And he said, so there are things in the Dead Sea Scrolls that will never be given to the people. Never. They will never be told what's really in the Dead Sea Scrolls that the church in Israel does not want anyone to know about, and they ain't never going to know. And so he told me, and I feel better about talking about this now that he's gone anyway. He says, so when I left the church, I founded a church and had all kinds of accolades. I mean, when I go to his home, he had all these certificates from universities around the world that give him an honorary doctorate here and honorary doctorate there. And very, very smart guy. But he unfortunately became a confirmed alcoholic. And I don't think I ever saw him draw a sober breath. He was one of the most decent, kindest, funny, clever, resourceful, and highly intelligent guys you'll ever want to meet. Very interesting to talk to. I mean, my God, he could talk for hours on ancient different religions of the world, the ancient languages of the world. The guy's got a doctorate in the subject, you know? And so especially you want to talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, listen to this guy. And he would tell you stuff that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls nobody's ever heard. So he told me, he said, I became so disillusioned with Christianity and Judaism that I decided I've had enough. I don't know if I'm an atheist or not, but I don't know what it is I am anymore. I'm through with the whole thing because I know too much. I've studied it too much now. And I know too much, so I'm no longer a Christian. I'm no longer care about the Jewish religion. I don't care about any of it. So he said, so with that kind of a background, PhDs, sought after all over the world to speak, you know what he ended up doing?
Drinking.
Absolutely. That's all it was. Just
says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. He just said, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I have a bottle and I have a nice home to live in, he did. He come from a family with money. So he had a nice home by the ocean. And it's always a beautiful home. Had a little pier with his boat and everything. And he said, that's it. I just want to stay drunk. I don't even want to see a sober day. And so he told me, as I said, I have a job. Go to work every day like anybody else. I said, well, where do you work? And he said, I work in a liquor store.
Discount.
Right. So, and I thought that was funny. Here's a PhD and doctorate in Dead Sea Scrolls, sought after doctor on theology and religion, all these years of background experience, world traveler, and today, he works in a liquor store. That's it. And he said, it's like going to heaven. I work at a liquor store. Got all the liquor I want. Bring it home.
It just goes to show you heaven is subjective.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he told me, he says, now so he was worked in a liquor store on, not Coronado, not on Balboa Island, but that city that enters to Balboa Island. What is it?
Newport?
Newport.
Yeah.
But he was a dear friend of mine. And we sat for days and hours, talked about theology and religion, etc. And he gave me stacks and stacks of documents that he had been studying, and he just gave it all to me. So here it is. There's all the stuff on the Dead Sea Scrolls. Nobody's ever going to know it, but this was my PhD thesis. Take it. You can have it. So I've got like 4 or 5 hours of interviews with him in private, talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls and religion and Judaism and everything. But the point of all of this story is that when I asked him, well, where do you work? He said, I still work. I can't do any. I can't just waste my life away. So I got to have a job, do something. So I work at the liquor store. This way I got all the free liquor I want, right? And he says, and our best customer, who comes in about every 2 to 3 weeks, our best customer that comes in, they buy cases of 100 proof vodka, 100 proof this, 100 proof that, the best of the best, top of the line booze, but they order it by the cases. 4 or 5 cases of this, 7 or 8 cases of that. Is Paul and Jan Crouch. And he said, Paul and Jan Crouch, they buy more liquor than I could ever conceive that anybody could use. He said that they buy cases of hard liquor.
They're not drinking it. They give it away as presents
Yeah, I hope so.
to the congregation.
Right, to the congregation. And he
Correct.
said those people are profound alcoholics. He said, I've seen him come in here looped and have to have somebody holding him up, and he comes in, he's looped to the gills, and he's ordering 7 cases of this, 8 cases of that. He said, those people drink like there's no tomorrow. But if you understand, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars a month, and there's nothing else to do but drink and build beautiful homes for yourself and buy yachts and build homes and buy properties around the world and drink. Have a good time. It's a disgusting. And he said, these people are to me absolutely disgusting because they don't mind you knowing that they are drunks and they couldn't care less. They're paying good money. And he said, my company loves them. The liquor store loves them. These people spend a lot of money at the store. He says, me, I don't care. I'll just take the cases out to the truck and put it in their big vans, load up the truck. And he said, Paul and Jan Crouch are alcoholics galore. You have no idea who these people really are and where the money's coming from and what they're really doing. And he said, I've heard all the stories. I know personally their bodyguards. The bodyguards come over and get the booze, and I'll sit and talk with the bodyguards with Paul and Jan Crouch, and he said, you have no idea in the world what's going on at TBN. But that's another story. Just understand TBN as a bunch of alcoholic, money bankers, money grubbing.
Running the show.
Running a show. It's called theater, the God show. They dance around the stage and make songs and have people coming in, dancing and singing and talking about the Lord Jesus, and for $29.95, no ups and no downs. Millions.
That
and
much.
The people love it.
That's not astrotheology.
No.
No.
That's the modern day Christianity. But if you're really interested in the spiritual foundations on which ancient Christianity was built, not this modern day monstrosity of alcoholics and goofballs, but if you're really interested in the hidden, occult or hidden foundations that you've never heard before, where Christianity developed its ideas from, that is an extraordinarily interesting story about the foundations, the philosophical basis for the stories in the New Testament about Jesus. So I have said this before, I'm stating it again. The New Testament story of Jesus is an encoded story. Codes. You know, you've heard a lot about Bible codes. National Geographics and the Discovery Channel and History Channel talk about the Bible codes. Well, it's true. There are codes in the Bible. As a matter of fact, in the original Hebrew Bible, I am told by the rabbis that there's at least 7 different codes encoded in the old original, not the King James Bible, but in the old ancient Hebrew writings, there's at least 7 different codes that the rabbis know about. You don't. They haven't told you. But they're encoded messages in the Old Testament and in the Torah and in some of the other old ancient writings, ancient Hebrew, which are encoded. And the rabbis are taught those codes. So when I hear people talking about Bible codes, I'm saying, yes, that's legitimately a legitimate subject. There are codes. The rabbis will tell you there are, in fact, legitimate codes, and they can show you. If you sit down with them, they'll show you. See how these words are lined up? Every other line is the same words. It's a code. It's encoded.
Wow.
So you're reading it as if it's a history. It's not history. It's an encoded word. It's encoded ideas. Telling you something in secret. The word in Latin is occult. Simply means hidden. Hidden from view. So it's like someone who's, it's like that movie, Beautiful Mind, where the guy was blessed with the ability to see codes. And that's why you have code breakers, people who know how to look at the symbols, watch the way things are configured, and see a code in it. It's called pattern recognition, encoding a message. Well, we have that in the military, breaking codes. Well, I'm saying that the story of Christianity, of Jesus in the New Testament, is an encoded story. So if you're reading it as history, you don't have it. That's why if you're reading it as history, like all the churches do, you're going to have a totally different interpretation than the next church, and the next church is going to be totally different, because everybody's looking at it as a history, and everybody's ignorant, ill-informed, and unread about history, so everybody's got a different view on what Jesus did, or why he did this, and why he did that, and the Catholics say one thing, Jehovah's Witnesses say different, then the Mormons will tell you something different, but the Presbyterians will tell you something different, but the Baptists will tell you. Everybody's got a different story about Jesus. Everybody's got a different reason why he did this and a different reason why he did that. And you can sit all day long and listen to all the different Christian religions, and all of them will tell you everybody else is crazy and we got the truth. And everybody else in town, all the other Christian churches don't know what they're doing. But we have the truth. Jehovah's Witnesses will tell you, we got the whole truth and everybody else is full of bull. Yeah, but that's what the Mormons said about you. The Mormons said they had the whole truth.
That's what everyone says. They all say it.
Yeah, but the Catholic Church said both of you full of bull, and they got the truth.
Exactly. Everybody,
but then the Baptist said the Catholic Church was full of bull, and they got the truth.
Right.
Everybody's got the truth. Well, there's only one truth, so who's got it? Well, first of all, nobody's got it. I'll tell you who has the real truth. The ancient Sumerians, the ancient Babylonians, the ancient Phoenician Canaanites, the ancient peoples of the ancient world had the real truth. That's where the temples came from. All of these ancient artifacts and temples and ancient pyramids and all these incredible temples that we find in Egypt. Here's where the real truth is. The real truth is you can't build anything like the ancients did because you don't know what they knew. So once you study the ancient foundations of Christianity, and a lot that's in Judaism, but I'm only talking about Christianity right now. Once you understand that the story of Christianity and the story of Jesus in the Bible is an encoded metaphor. It's an encoded story. And that's the bottom line. Now, once you understand that, it makes sense. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about when I say encoded story. When I was growing up, there was a book kids used to read when little kids called Aesop's Fables. And Aesop's Fables was a book that you would read to children, little kids, 4, 5, 6 years old. You would read to them a little book for children called Aesop's Fables. And in this book, it would give you little stories to read to children, but it taught children certain things about morals and ethics and scruples and everything. It would teach a child with a little story. And one of the stories was the famous story, Aesop's Fable, was the story of the tortoise, the race between the tortoise and the rabbit. It's a very famous old story from hundreds of years ago. So you teach a child and tell the little kid a story about the race between the tortoise, the turtle, and the rabbit. Well, obviously the rabbit can run faster than the turtle. So the story was that the rabbit ran all the way up to the goal line, and then to be presumptuous and arrogant, he was already there. The race hadn't even started. He's already there. So he lays down under the tree to rest while the tortoise, he hadn't even started yet. So he's already there, but he's not going to cross the goal line yet. Doesn't need to. He's got plenty of time. So he relaxes under the tree, and the old tortoise just plugs along, and by the time he gets up to where the rabbit's sound asleep, he crosses the goal line. And so the tortoise, the turtle, won the race. Which means just because you're fast doesn't mean you're going to win the race. Just because you're wealthy and handsome and got all the money and everything going for you, that doesn't mean anything. You may be in a car accident tomorrow, an auto accident, and die. While some old man who's been working all his life and a little Mickey Mouse job has got a beautiful family, a beautiful wife and children and grandchildren and many, many friends, and has a beautiful home, and he lives to be 90 years old and is enjoying life. And you died at 30. I mean, you thought you had everything. You didn't have nothing. You were killed in an auto accident. Or you drank yourself. You overdosed in drugs. So the point being is that You tell a child this story about the race between the rabbit and the tortoise to show them just because you're fast does not mean you're going to win the race. Just because you're handsome and good-looking or wealthy, it doesn't mean you're better than anybody else.
Don't presume.
Don't presume anything. Because maybe the one person you thought was a nobody, he couldn't do anything, he might end up being president, and he might end up being a wealthy man, and you end up being broke. You don't know what tomorrow brings, so don't be presumptuous. Well, that's called Aesop's fable. It was just one of them. So I'm saying that Christianity, the original story of Christianity, was like Aesop's fable. It's an encoded story. And once you understand what the players, what Jesus represented, what the apostles represented, what the different players in the Bible, the different stories, and what happened. Once you understand all of these different characters and people in the Bible and the Bible story of Jesus, they represented a symbol. They represented something. And so then you begin to see that the whole story of Jesus is an encoded story right in front of you, and you never saw it. Why? Because you were looking at the story of Jesus in the Bible as history. It's not history. It's a story. That's why the Bible is referred to. The Jesus story in the Bible and the New Testament is referred to in religion as the greatest story ever told.
And it is.
It is the greatest story ever told. Why? Because it's the oldest story that's ever been told. It is the only story that's ever been told. Therefore, it's the greatest story ever told. It's a story. It's not our oldest collection of facts on the earth. No, it's the greatest story ever told. So then, if you really want to get something from Christianity, you need to understand it's a story. It's an encoded story, and what you have today in the churches is a blasphemous stupidity. Absolutely ludicrous on the face of it, jumping around, taking people's money, ripping them off, spitting on yourself, falling all over the stage, jumping around, ranting and raving about Jesus as in Jesus that, and you have no idea in the world what you're doing is misleading the people of the world. And that's why there's a story in the Bible and the New Testament where someone comes to Jesus and they have a seed in their hand. And they have a seed and they ask Jesus, what kind of seed is this? And Jesus says to them, it's a metaphor, it's a symbolic story. And so they said to Jesus, this is a seed we found. What kind of a seed is it? And he said, why don't you plant the thing? Why don't you plant it in the earth, water it, and watch what grows? And if an apple tree grows up, well, then I guess that's what it was an apple seed, arrowhead. But if a pear tree grows up, I guess it was a pear seed. Does that make any sense to you? Instead of me guessing what kind of a seed it is, plant the thing and water it. Let's see what comes up. Because there's no better way to tell what kind of a seed it is. Let it grow. You'll find out what it is. If it's got oranges on it, I guess it was an orange seed. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense.
Okay. So therefore, Jesus went on to say, the Bible says, Jesus went on to say, by their fruits you shall know them. Therefore, as you go through life, don't listen to what people tell you. Look at what they do. By their fruits you shall know them. They will tell you, oh, I just love the Lord Jesus, and oh, I'm this, and oh, I'm holy, and oh, I go to church. I don't want to hear all that stuff. What are you really doing? What are you really? Who are you really? What are you really doing? All that drinking on the weekend and screwing around with your neighbor's wife and messing around in government and cheating people and treating people like crap. I mean, really, who are you really? I know all that stuff you tell me about how holy you are and the church you go to and all that. But who are you really? Because by their fruits, you will know them. Okay?
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the next one right here on this channel. Thank you for watching.